Welcome to Legal Keys, unlocking time, revenue, and results. The podcast that connects you with the people, technologies, and trending topics shaping the modern legal landscape. From cutting-edge AI innovations to high-growth marketing strategies and everything in between. Legal Keys is your go-to resource for actionable insights. Brought to you by Faster Outcomes and hosted by Tim Sawyer, two-time Inc. 500 co-founder entrepreneur. We're here to help you navigate the tools and trends driving success in today's legal world.
Hello and welcome to Legal Keys, sponsored by Faster Outcomes, the ultimate AI legal intelligence platform for lawyers and law firms of all shapes and sizes. If this is your first time joining Legal Keys, we appreciate you joining us today. For those of you who have been following the podcast, we appreciate your loyalty. Encourage you to continue to follow us, like, and share. And if this is your first time, as I love to say, you picked the perfect episode. I've got a great guest today, a great friend. Met Gary a long time ago. Today, we're joined by Gary Miles, a lawyer with over 40 years of trial experience, former managing partner, mediator, coach, podcast host, and author. After decades leading a successful practice, Gary now helps attorneys overcome burnout, improve mindset, and create more balanced, fulfilling careers. He hosts the Free Lawyer podcast, which I encourage everyone to listen to. We're going to make sure he gets you that information. And recently published Breaking Free, a guide to achieving personal and professional freedom as a lawyer. Gary, my friend, thanks for joining us today on Legal Keys.
Tim, thank you so much for having me. You know how much I appreciate you and all the good work that I've seen that Faster Outcomes does to help make the practice of law a little bit easier by taking some of those repetitive tasks that we all don't enjoy quite as much and allowing us to focus on what really matters in our practice.
Thank you, and I appreciate that. And so I'm really excited to have this conversation today because you've got a really interesting take. You're providing incredible value to lawyers. And as someone who is relatively new to the space, less than a year in the legal profession, I've had the good fortune of attending lots of conferences and meeting lots of lawyers. And objectively, from an outsider's perspective, it's tough, right? There's no profession that's not tough, but being a lawyer is a grind. It's a lot of responsibility. A lot of people count on you, and it's challenging. And so I'm curious, what was the inflection point for you? Because you were operating at the highest level, right? As a legal professional, when you said, you know what, I think maybe there's a better way for me to do what I'm doing in the world. When did that happen, and how did that happen?
Well, it really happened only about 4 years or so ago. I've been practicing now for 46. I did insurance defense primarily and other kinds of litigation. I did some plaintiff's work that appealed to me, some defamation cases, some employment law. But when I was a litigator, I would help one client. And if I had a bunch of cases at a time, I'd help a bunch of individual clients. And I managed my firm. I loved doing that. We had a great staff. It was exactly what I wanted it to be. But after 40 odd years, I got tired of arguing with lawyers. I got tired of me trying to beat you and you trying to beat me, even if we did it in a nice, courteous, and professional way, which it often was, and sometimes sadly wasn't. It was always competitive. There was always a winner and a loser. Maybe we reached a settlement. We both feel like we got a good deal. But I decided I wanted to help the profession more than that. I enjoy doing divorce work and helping my clients, but if I could help a family lawyer have a better practice, have a better attitude, handle cases more efficiently, I'd be helping that many more clients and helping more lawyers. And I've seen how the law profession has gotten so much more challenging over the years. Obviously, Faster Outcomes is in the technology space, and technology is becoming a huge asset to lawyers.
Yep.
Having said that, it's also become shackles for a lot of lawyers. But primarily the cell phone and virtual email, clients expect immediate responses to everything. That's kind of become the way of the world with technology. Now, when I started practicing, Tim, we didn't have computers to speak of, and there was no virtual work, and I had no trouble setting boundaries. I set the boundary when I closed the door to my office. No one could reach me at home. No one could email me. And lawyers were much more courteous and respectful and less antagonistic. And it's become a very difficult field. And the gift of what you do at Faster Outcomes is you can help make that practice a little less overwhelming, a little more consistent, a little less time demanding by making it
Yeah,
more efficient and smoother. And it's a real asset to, a couple of my clients use your products and they're very pleased.
I appreciate that. It's what you just said is profound and something we don't think a lot about. And that is the idea that there's no more such thing as, yeah, I'm just going to get untethered for a little bit.
Right.
There's no place to go.
Right.
And
Well,
it's
I work with my clients to do that, to set appropriate boundaries with their clients. So, we can train our clients to expect that whenever they call, we will answer, or whenever they send an email, we will respond in minutes. But Tim, if you called your doctor, you wouldn't expect him to answer the phone. We
right.
know what the system is. We leave a message with a nurse will call us back, or the doctor calls back, and that's fine. But we have let our clients set the lack of boundaries in our practices. And, there
You
are
just
some.
said, I have to interrupt you because what you just said just hit me like a ton of bricks. Think about the difference. It's just, this just blew my mind. Think about the difference between our expectation of a primary healthcare provider. We have no expectation this guy's ever going to call us back, no expectation he's going to take our appointment, and he's in private practice. Could you imagine applying that standard to the modern day lawyer?
Right. And I don't really want to
Nuts.
use that as an analogy, but I don't want to apply that standard. But what I do want to have is there's not an expectation that we will take every call and answer every email immediately. But I try to help my clients set windows of communication time. So say 10:30 would be the first one in the morning. So when I get to the office at 8:30 to 10:30, I'm just focused on getting my work done, not looking at my email, not answering the phone. And at 10:30, I'll answer all those emails. I'll return those calls. And at noon, I'll have another period of focused work. And our clients get a call back within the day, and they get my direct attention and focus. But I have time to get my work done. But now lawyers work so hard all day, it's like I didn't get anything done. I mean, that's a common refrain that I hear a lot of.
Yeah, and what I've noticed, different types of law, we actually do a lot, fair amount, I should say, in family law. And family lawyers that are operating at a high volume, uh, even the ones who are really interested in engaging with us, 3 appointments get canceled, emergency court session,
Right.
and it's really, I say to my wife, I'm like, I don't know that I could do that, to have so little control over your time. In other words, you've got a caseload. That caseload requires things you can't control, right? We have some things we can't control, but it feels like that's a lot that we can't control. And
So,
so the pressure of that is a lot. But I had a couple questions and I made some notes, and if it's okay,
absolutely.
so our listeners can get a sense of um, what it is that you're solving for, right? So one of the questions I had was, as a coach, what are the most common quantitative goals, revenue growth, billable hours, efficiency, and equal, if not more important, qualitative goals, stress reduction, work satisfaction, leadership development, that you're helping those folks achieve, the modern lawyer? What are you seeing?
Well, the quantitative goal is not enough time to get their work done. And some of it has to do with efficiency, like we talked about before. I have my clients, actually, so many of my clients who tell me, I don't know where my time went. I worked so hard, I didn't get anything done. And I said, what did you do? He said, I don't know. I worked so hard. So we actually do I'll use a fancy word, audit, but we actually have them track for a week literally every single thing they do during the day, even wasted time, go on the internet, browse the internet, whatever it might be, um, and find what they're really doing. Because so often they're spending time on things that are not productive, they're not consistent with what they want the purpose of their day to be. And then we try to come up with a system of making it work better. I like the idea because I used to have that project that was so hard to get done. And my philosophy was I wanted to clear my desk, get everything done so I could just focus on that. That was
Yep.
a fancy excuse for procrastination. I
Yeah.
putting that thing off until it never got done. So I have my clients pick that project that they've been putting off, the one that's really important, the one that they don't actually want to do, and I
Yep.
have them tomorrow commit to working on it from 8:30 to 10:30. They may not get it finished. It may be writing a brief. It may be 8 hours, whatever. But from 8:30 to 10:30, that's what they're going to work on. They're not going to get interrupted by their paralegal. Their partner will be trained not to come in when the doors close. They won't answer the phone. They won't take the emails. They're going to work on it for 2 hours. And what happens at the end, they get so much done. Lawyers are bright, they're hardworking. When they can actually focus, they get a lot done. They have a
Right.
feeling of success because, wow, I've been putting that off for a month and I made a whole lot of progress on it, or I got it finished. And they're also at their highest level of energy and focus. They're not tired yet. They're not worn down from all the stresses of the day. They get a lot done. And then I have them batch all their emails and calls in the next window. Instead of interrupting that 2 hours to answer every email that came in every 10 minutes and lose their focus, now we answer them one after another, get them all done, get the calls returned, and it's a much more productive way to run their practice. And I have some other tools I use to help them get so much more done in so much less time to bill for their time better and really get ahead. Because that's the biggest complaint.
Yeah.
I just don't have enough time in my day to get everything done. And setting boundaries with clients is helpful. Maybe choosing not to take that case from that client who's an obvious problem client. Sometimes we just are so competitive and feel like we need more cases. We say yes, and we regret we took it,
Right.
because it's a problem client. So that's sort of the main quantitative goal.
Yeah.
To switch to the qualitative, um, finding a practice that you own instead of owns you, finding joy and satisfaction and fulfillment in your practice. I talked to some, I remember when I became a lawyer, it was a cause for celebration, a family dinner, went out to a nice place to eat. Everybody's patting me on the back. It's a big deal. That's the way it is with everybody. And 5 years later, you're like, why in the heck did I choose to do this of all things? That
Yeah.
joy is gone, that sense of fulfillment. And what I find is they aren't maybe in the right lane or aren't practicing the right way. Um, Whatever our values are, we've lost touch with what they are. We've taken the job that may pay us the most money, have the biggest name, and it may be doing a kind of work we don't find fulfilling or representing people that don't really excite us to represent them. And I ask my clients is what in the last week did you love doing that really energized you, that made you feel happy? And they tell me. And I said, what did you do in the last week that made you angry, frustrated,
Range. Yeah.
annoyed? Do less of that. And they said, well, how do I do that? I said, well, let's talk about how we get there. Let's find what you really love about being a lawyer and let's make that happen. Let's create that practice. And often they can do it where they are. Sometimes maybe where they are is just a place that they'll never feel happy and they need to maybe shift to a different firm, a different kind of firm, go in-house, work for the government, work for a legal tech company, do legal sales, do something else that they find truly fulfilling.
So the start is you're decluttering their mind, and I can relate to this. So if I can, I had a moment this morning where I was feeling just completely overwhelmed. You know how you get in your head and you think, okay, these are the 96 things I have to do. And you lose the ability to prioritize what's a one, what's a two, it just all feels like it just comes into a big bag called work, right? And then you're in your brain and you're saying, how am I ever going to get through this stuff? And it's overwhelming. I can totally see the value of having someone to talk to help you think through that. And just like you would have a counselor, right? That you go to and say, psychiatrist, and say, I've got to declutter some thoughts. I can definitely see the value of that. And I think sometimes people think, well, I've been a high performing person my whole life. I'm good, right? And
Right.
I can see it personally. I can tell you that's 100% not true. Everybody gets overwhelmed at times. Everybody starts to feel burnout. And I think what you're doing is so valuable because you can help that person regroup, realign, and then, like you said, to direct them to do the things. First thing that you said is amazing is let's take care of this big rock, right? This, you can't see past this rock. Let's move that. And then let's look at all these little rocks and let's put them in or a Lego tower. And you're actually helping them with their Lego tower, right?
Right.
And to feel like when they're going to get to the top of the tower, which sometimes we get to a place where we don't think that we can, right? It's
Right.
just one Lego after another. So I really, um, I think I'm sitting here going, I really need to get my stuff organized
Well, you
and
talked about
realign,
you talked about the bag of work, and so many lawyers feel that way. They say, "I got just so much to do, and I don't have time to figure out what to do first." They just are overwhelmed by what seems like an overwhelming mountain of tasks. And so we actually will sit down and say, "Look, I want to write down every significant project, every case that you have to work on." They invariably find that when they do that, well, it's a whole lot less than I thought. I mean,
yeah,
these 5 matters are about done. All I can do is send out a closing letter. All my work on this file is done. I just got to send out the demand letter. That's not that much. And we actually will then together prioritize, what's most important. I mean, I always ask the questions. They have to make the decisions, which has been hanging around the longest, which will create the most revenue for the firm, which is something they can offload to someone else. And that big bag of work, now all of a sudden, well, we have a plan. And it actually wasn't, it was a big bag, but there weren't many things in it. It wasn't that hard. And a lot of times people don't take the time to really evaluate what work they have and draw those logical priorities.
now, and that makes sense. Have you seen, so you've been at this, like you said, more than 4 decades is practicing and
Yes.
now on the consulting side, which is super valuable, really, really valuable. What, if you think back 30 years, the pressures, and you kind of alluded to some of them, the pressures of a lawyer 30 years ago versus the pressures on a lawyer now, what's like the biggest cultural thing that has changed that's made it like more daunting and, um, you
It
know,
it seemed, I guess I would point to two. One is the competition. There seem to be more lawyers now chasing the same business. And it used to be not at all unethical, but considered unprofessional to try to get the clients that another lawyer had. And maybe in your arena of marketing and you've been in different professions, of course, you're going to try to get business from your competitors. But in law, that was kind of considered, well, we don't do that. That's Tim's client. I'm not going to try to get
yeah,
your client. That's Tim's a friend. That's your client. I'll try to get other clients. But now that happens all the time. Um, Other lawyers calling my clients, trying to get them to switch. Um, and it makes the practice harder. It makes the practice harder. The other is in the litigation world, it's become so much more antagonistic. There used to be so much professional courtesy. My senior partner and mentor and founder of my firm, Dick Lurch, was an incredible defense attorney. There was a plaintiff's lawyer named George White, the best in Maryland. They seemed to always go against each other. They just seemed to always draw each other. They were trying to, it was the first trial I ever attended as a lawyer. I was second chair. And George White, the plaintiff's lawyer, asked to speak to Dick. And he said, Dick, I don't know how I did this, but I forgot to subpoena the hospital bill. And Dick said, well, George, how much do you think it was? George said, I don't know for sure. It's probably about 10 grand. And Dick said, okay, I'll stipulate to that. Now, this day and age, that would never, ever happen. Well,
yeah,
sorry, you knew you had to subpoena it. You didn't bring it, so it doesn't come into evidence. And
right.
what goes around comes around. There's, I'm sure, sometime that Dick needed a favor, and it wouldn't be in that case, but some other case, and George would have never forgotten it. And
Yeah,
and yet today, if I make a mistake, the other lawyer will try to, take advantage of it. I never, ever, ever missed a scheduled appointment except once. And
yeah,
it was an appellate scheduling conference. and somehow it didn't make it to my calendar. And it was like a settlement conference on an appeal. And the other lawyer called me on my phone. He said, Gary, where are you? I said, I forgot I'll be there in 45 minutes. And,
Yeah.
and he said, don't worry, I'll cover for you. I got it covered. He'll never know. And he could have said to the judge, I'm sure Mr. Miles knew about this hearing. I don't know where he is. He could
Yeah.
have thrown me under the bus, but he had my back completely. And I was forever grateful to him for that.
It sounds like, so if you think about the modern political landscape,
Yes. Good
tracking,
analogy.
tracking exactly, right? Back when you didn't hate somebody because they had a D in front of the name or an R in front of the name. Quite frankly, most people didn't even know if you had a D or an R in front of your name.
Right.
And now we live in a world where, the only way, to find validation is to eviscerate the other human.
Right.
And I hadn't thought about that because certainly that's impacted lawyers, right? As they, like you said, there's a winner and a loser, and the idea that we can shake each other's hand, give each other a hug, and go back to our corners. That
Yeah,
seems like
the
that's
analogy that I draw is I'm a golfer. I competed as a young man. I played high school and college golf, and I've competed in clubs since. And the nature of golf is you and I have a golf match. You hit a good shot. I say, Tim, great shot. You're my opponent. Tim, great shot.
yeah,
You
yeah,
beat me on the 18th hole. When I say, Tim, great match. You played really well. And you say, Gary, you showed a lot of heart. You played well. That's how law used to be.
yeah,
But now it's like a football game. You sack me, you dance around, you stomp, you wave your arms, and if I make a mistake, you take advantage of it.
yeah.
It's become like that. It's become much more antagonistic, and that creates a lot of stress for lawyers because you don't have any power over how the other lawyer treats you. And sadly, our profession creates a lot of that stress for itself.
So as we start to wind down, what we get where we're at. We've talked about the state of the union, right? It's tricky, it's tough, it's a grind, and you're helping people find fulfillment, redirecting them. I think that's amazing. If you had to say, Tim, and I get it, where not everybody falls into the same category, and it's not a homogenous group per se. If you had to say, my recommendation for the modern lawyer to try to get more out of life, whether it's the practice, but more fulfillment. What are the two or three things that you would leave our listeners with as recommendations?
Uh, there are a lot of business decisions, like, for example, what you all do with AI and technology. Wow, what a huge benefit it can be from a business decision. But as an individual lawyer going to work each day, these would be the three things I have. Be in the present. Now, we have to plan our cases, we have to have our strategy, we got to put dates on our calendar. But all too often, we lawyers get tormented by worrying about the future. And at the beginning of my practice, I would be just obsessed with whether I'm going to win a case, but mostly whether I'm going to lose the case. And when I lost the case, what will that mean? Will my client fire me? That whole rabbit hole, very unproductive. Or we'd be worried about the past. Did I make a mistake? Will my client complain? Will my client pull the business because I did something wrong? The present is the only place we get work done. And it's the only place is kind of stress free when we're sitting down in that 2 hours to work on that project. We're getting things done. We like it. We enjoy the work. So be in the present. When you find your mind worrying about the future or feeling regret or anxiety about the past, try to recenter yourself in the present. The second is what I call acceptance. We spend too much time focused on things we have no power over that bother us. The boss who's not very nice, the client who's too demanding, the lawyer who's nasty. We think about those things and we have no power over them. We can't make that lawyer be nice and professional and courteous. We can't. So
Yeah,
just let him be what he is and figure out how you have to respond, but don't get obsessed with those things that we don't like. Because if we focus on them too much, we're actually creating our own stress. Let people be who they are. If your boss is too demanding, doesn't pay enough compliments, that's who he is. And just
yeah,
make whatever decision you want about that. Just don't expect a gratitude, don't expect a compliment. And the other is to be grateful. Life can be hard sometimes, but I'm as blessed to be born in this country, to the family I was born in, to be given a set of skills. And life isn't perfect, but wow, I have so much to be grateful for. So I have my clients for the first month we work together. Every morning, wake up, write down three things they're grateful for a month. And the key is they can't repeat things. So after 60 days, 20 days, you've written down 60 things you're grateful for. And darn, you have a hard time coming up with the 61st. That's a lot. So
Yeah.
you spend that 21st day going around thinking, what can I be grateful for today? And when that is your attitude towards life, what can I be grateful for today? Instead of, oh, this person didn't talk to me nice or whatever, boy, you have a much better attitude and outlook about everything. And maybe the last thing is what brings fulfillment in law is being of service. Focus not on the lawyer and how difficult he is, but focus on your client. How can I better serve my client? How can I solve his or her problem? How can I bring my client relief? Because that's why we entered the profession, and that's what we find truly fulfilling.
Amen to that. And so for our little AI plug, because that's what I do for a living, um, I've come to this. What every lawyer has to do is it causes the most drain. They have to do three things, right? Really, every professional person, accountant, doctor has to do three things. One is they have to, when a situation presents itself, they have to aggregate information. They have to organize and aggregate information. Give me all the facts, what happened, who did what, where did they do it? And then, like I said, organize that, right? Once they organize that, now they have to analyze that information. Once they've made that analysis, then they have to plot a course of action. So it's aggregate, analyze, and act. And one of the things that AI does, which can contribute to a lot of these conditions that you're talking to, because it's a lot of brain damage to do that. AI does that better than any human can, whether it's a doctor, a lawyer, an accountant. So my encouragement is, in conjunction with what you're recommending, to look at modern tools. Don't get overwhelmed by it, but to look at modern tools and say, how can I use the modern tools that are available to offload, kind of brain dump some of that stuff, and that'll give them more time to focus on the things that you're talking about. And what a beautiful marriage of technology, process, and hope, right? It sounds like that'd be a pretty winning concept. So if a lawyer wants to get in touch with you after this, Gary, how do they reach out? Where can they get you? And
First, let me just supplement what you just said. I've seen how AI can serve, and I just use some basic tools, but it
yeah,
amazes me. Literally, it does things not only so much faster, like instantly, it does it better than I can. And they allow me to get so much done that requires my input and experience without all the time consuming tasks. So AI really is a solution for so many lawyers. And if you've been hesitant to take the plunge, I really encourage you to do it and reach out to Tim and Faster Outcomes because they may have solutions for you that will make your practice more fulfilling. Find me on LinkedIn is the easiest place. I'm very active there every day. I'm posting something and answering my messages under my name, Gary Miles. My website is garymiles.net. I have a podcast. Tim was a great guest on it a couple months back called The
thank you.
Free Lawyer. And Mondays, I have solo episodes with tips that might be helpful to you. Thursday, I bring guests like Tim who may have an insight on a lane of your practice that could really make it easier for you.
Well, we appreciate you taking the time. We want to thank our listeners for joining us today. As we appreciate your loyalty, we ask you to like and share, continue to listen. Grateful to Gary for giving up his precious time today to come on and share. I feel more relaxed. It's funny. I feel like my blood pressure has gone down a little bit. I'm thinking about things a little differently than I was 40 minutes ago. Which is why I do this, right? I learn something every time I get on the phone with the incredible people that that make up the legal profession. So we want to thank everybody, and we'll see you again in 2 weeks, guys.